From some spot. Doesn't get prettier than that.
I don't remember it.
And a one-hand effort by Harris. And Harris snaps it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the College Football Show. We're breaking down College Football DFS for week 14. We're getting deep into the season. It's a grind. We got Colorado, Oklahoma State's playing right now. We got all the games on today. We got them on tomorrow. Bruce has been hard at work on the playbooks and projections, the rankings, everything we got here. Bruce, how's it going over there?
Hey, pretty good. Yeah, watching the games, watching my receivers not do anything, and the opposing, the running back on the same side do all the work. It's just part of the college football experience, I guess. Lineups looking pretty bad right now, but still a second half of the day, and we have a Saturday slate tomorrow, a big slate tonight. Has some terrible offensive teams, so looking forward to it. Big matchups this weekend for sure, especially tomorrow.
Yeah, obviously the college football playoff. These are big games that are going to decide a lot coming up this weekend, so that'll be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, DFS-wise, we got a slate today. I wish the slates were a little better. I think the football game today, the Chiefs game that starts in an hour, kind of muddied that up a little bit. That's a terrible football game. I mean, still money to be won in Showdown. Don't worry. If you want, we got all the content up for you there. If you want to sign up to check out the college stuff or any other content that we have with all the sports, it's Giblets 44 gets you 44% off your first payment. But Bruce, let's dive in and talk college. I assume we'll rattle through it a little quicker with it just being me and you. And there are a lot of games on the main slate. I'm seeing 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There's like 13 games. So who knows? Maybe it will take a little bit longer, but we'll kick it off with Tennessee and Bruce, our guy, Mr. Pavia in Vanderbilt. A little rivalry game. It's, a rivalry type of week. So we'll have a bunch of these games. And, I mean, Tennessee's looking like they're primed to make the college football playoff. But not if our guy, Mr. Pavia, doesn't have anything to say about it, right? I don't think it's a bad spot for him at 7K. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but he's definitely not terrible, I think, in this spot. You can pair him with some cheap receivers if you want to, so I think that's a viable option. Tennessee, obviously Dylan Sampson has been pretty popular. He is 9.5K or 9.2K, sorry. And at that price, I have struggled with that price a lot this season. Now, he's had good performances, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely a lot to spend, right? You have to have a really strong performance at that price tag. Nico has been frustrating. He is 5.5K and having a 30 implied team total. That seems pretty strong there. So he seems like he'll be a value that will pop a little bit based on what's going on there with the numbers. Of course, you have the receiver roulette you can play, which I never like playing it with Squirrel White and Brew McCoy and all these guys, but they're dirt cheap where, listen, I think they will pop a little bit in projections. Curious what you got on your end on this game.
Yeah, I think you're right, especially a guy like Squirrel White. He's 3,300, just has a 17% target share last 3 weeks. It's always tough to play a Tennessee receiver, especially this year. Nico hasn't really came along as we probably thought he would. So it's been a little bit tougher to play him, but he is 5,500 this week, which is nuts. Could see that ownership close to double digits, but still kind of low. Maybe this is the week he busts out. He hasn't ran that much this year. I thought maybe he'd be much more of a runner this season after watching the bowl game last year. But yeah, Pavia, 15 rushes per game, 7K. Not the best matchup, but he's done it in tougher matchups in the past. So you definitely have to keep him in your pool for sure. Sampson and his 22 touchdowns this year matches up well with the Vandy defense. Vandy is giving up 27 points per game to running backs this year. So definitely in play for me, even though he is expensive. And Stowers, the Vandy tight end, is 4,100, 20% target share last 4 weeks and 4 touchdowns this year. And then, put all the Tennessee receivers in a hat and draw 1 or 2 if you're going to play Nico. I think they're all in play. You just have to get lucky there.
Yeah, it's a tough game, man. Like there's definitely plays in this game, but be cautious, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know we talk about like sometimes like, hey, the 12 o'clock window, it hasn't been as good as like the 3:30 window. There's definitely some good games in the 12 o'clock window. Don't get me wrong, but I'll definitely be cautious with this game because there are some really good games on this slate. The next game up, I don't think is a good game, but it is a rivalry game. It's Ohio State and Michigan. I assume Michigan will get absolutely curb stomped by Ohio State. The question is, will they let up, right? Or will they just pour on the points, right? This kind of rivalry game, you could expect Ohio State just kind of keep putting it on over and over. And listen, if Ryan Day doesn't win this game, it's got to be over. You know what I mean? Like you can't lose this one. This is, of all the Michigan Ohio State games, this is one you can't lose. I mean, they lost one last year that you couldn't lose, but this one, Michigan is just so bad, it's an easy dump. So I'm sure they'll catch the win, but will there be DFS viable plays in this game, Bruce? I don't think so. What about you?
Yeah, mostly avoiding it. I think you play Jeremiah Smith on any slate. He's 6,500 here. Michigan's pass coverage hasn't been great this season, so I think the Ohio State receivers are in play. Smith has 25% target share last 4, 9 touchdowns this year. Egbuka is pretty close to that as well, and Carnell Tate has actually been pretty good, and he's 4K. So I think that's the way to attack Michigan is through the air. And I think those 3 guys are tournament viable, but other than that, we can skip on through the rest.
Yeah, let's skip on through to West Virginia and Texas Tech. That sounds like a good game, right? And honestly, it's a game that like we've kind of been like targeting both these teams throughout the season. Like pretty much when they're on different, like they're on every slate for the most part, and it's always like, oh, we want to target the game with West Virginia and the game with Texas Tech. Now we got them playing each other. We got Garrett Green at 7.6K, Taj Brooks 9.9K, definitely a good spend, but hey, he's a costly one. Morton is the key guy that I like here. I think Morton's price at 6.4 is just it's a tasty price tag. I'm in on that. You can pair it up with Josh Kelly at 7.2, Caleb Douglas 4.8. I kind of prefer going down for the cheaper option in Caleb Douglas, but both are great plays. You can even make a case for Coy Eakin at 4.2K. When it comes to West Virginia, though, I don't know, man. Like, I don't love playing Donaldson and White, that roulette game. Garrett Green is fine. I don't love their receivers. They have cheap prices in Taylor and Clement, but those are the main 2 I'm looking at. I'm definitely heavier on the Texas Tech side. I'm not ignoring West Virginia, but it seems like I just want to attack mainly that Texas Tech pass game here, Bruce. How about you?
Yeah, I really like Taj Brooks, especially in tournaments. I think it's senior day for him as well. Senior. So I think he is expensive, but West Virginia, if you remember a couple weeks back, they gave up 3 touchdowns to Bryson Washington. I think Harvey had a big game last week. Their rush defense has been really bad this year. They're giving up 30 points per game, 2 running backs, and Taj should get most of the volume there. So I think it's a great spot for him. Just think it's a great game all the way around, to be honest. The quarterbacks are both going to be really owned. There's 2 cheap, 7,600 for Garrett Green, who's going to run. Baron Morton, who's going to throw the ball, 6,400. It's just dumb. And you can play Morton and Brooks together, as you've seen in weeks past. They both hit. I think they both scored 30 like a couple weeks back. So you definitely can play them together, and you can pair them with the wide receiver as well. Since Morton doesn't run, Douglas has been really good. I think he's been solid. Kelly had a pretty bad score last week, but he was targeted quite a bit still. Just didn't come through. And then Eakin as well is just solid. Hard to play any of these West Virginia receivers, but if you do, it's Clement and Taylor. Both those guys are targeted quite a bit. And if they're trailing here, they may get more than usual.
Yeah, it's definitely a good game. And the total too. I should mention the total. I haven't done that, so let me pull it up real quick. Test it. Oh, it's because we got all those games today. It's got me messed up here. Let's see. Texas Tech is 64.5. Pretty healthy total. Figured that was the case, and I'll just quote the other totals. Michigan, Ohio State 43, Tennessee, Vanderbilt 48.5. So clearly one of the better games on this slate. We'll definitely want to get exposure to it. Let's get to another game that's definitely not a bad game. It's a lower total, 49, but it's Louisville and Kentucky. Little rivalry game, of course. Louisville, we've been playing them a lot this year, right? We played Tyler Shuck. He's now 7.5K. It's not the most ideal matchup, right? But it's not terrible. Isaac Brown, back from injury, 6.5K. Corey Brooks, 7.3, a little bit of a discount than what he's been in the past. I believe he was hitting 8K not too long ago. Chris Bell, still a value at 4.7. And then I should mention Kentucky. Kentucky's not my favorite spot in the world. Maybe you'll have some insight on how to handle them. They do have a different starter than they've had. Cutter Boley, sorry. And he's 4.5K, Bruce. And I have been on the rant of cheap quarterbacks. We got to consider them. They're interesting. I'll admit, I don't know much about Cutter Boley. I don't know if he lives down south in Kentucky. Maybe he's a hometown kid with that kind of name. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Demi Somo Karnbai. I don't know how to say his name, but he's 4.6. He's kind of a value at running back that I've seen him pop before. I don't know if he'll really pop here, but we know Louisville games can shoot out. And then, of course, Dan Key, he is definitely a guy that we have been playing throughout the season at 4.9K. But talk about the Louisville side and talk about the 4.5K QB, because, yes, we've had 5K QBs, Bruce, but I don't think we've got a 4.5 guy. Decent projection I see on SaberSim. Curious what we're doing with this one.
Yeah, I watched him last week because they played Texas, and I was watching really close. He came in late in the game and looked great. He's like a 6'5" quarterback, pro style kind of guy, and he is from Lexington. So you are right, and he looks the part. I think he's a good value there.
Can he run, Bruce? Because I saw a healthier projection, and I was at least on Saber, but I was curious why it was so much higher than it is.
Yeah, I have him around 15 currently. He doesn't run at all.
Okay.
But yeah, he's a big dude, and he can pass. He looked good throwing the football, a lot better than Vandegrift for sure. He looked comfortable in the pocket. So, and that was with playing Texas, the number 1, number 2 defense there. So I think he's a solid play for sure. It's tough with the Louisville running backs, but I think Isaac Brown is probably still the number 1 guy there, 6,500, and I think Kentucky can be got on the ground. Texas ran the ball well on them last week, and I think they could probably do that. The Louisville offensive line is solid. Kentucky backs, I think you can play Sumo here, but 4,600, but it is a tougher spot. He's going to need his quarterback to do some stuff through the air as well, probably to open things up for him. I think Dane Key at 4,900 is a solid play. He's been good most of this year. Chris Bell as well. You mentioned he's a good value. Ja'Cory Brooks, 7,300, probably more of a tournament play, but he's been solid all year, and just big play potential with him. I think he's a good play. Kataris Hicks for 3K is going to be on the playbook. He started last week because Huggins Bruce was out, and if he starts, he's a good solid 3K play. He got 6 targets last week. But yeah, just mainly one-offs from this one, and just moving on to the next one. Yeah,
definitely. Again, not a game you can just, I think, write off, but it's got some values that you can mix and match. Of course, Louisville games can just pop off. Let's get to another game that I'm intrigued by. This game from a college football fan perspective. I don't know as much DFS wise, but it's Clemson and South Carolina. I think winner of this game could have a shot to get into the playoff. They're both 17 and 18 ranked wise, I think, and I just think it's a fun game from that perspective. It's a 49 total, similar to what we just talked about. One thing to call out is Cade Klubnik's been great this year. Do I want to pay 8.6K for a guy in a 49 total? Probably not, right? That's just like a decent rule of thumb, I would say. So I don't think I'm dying to get to him, although he's been fun to watch this year. Sellers, 7-1. I think there's other quarterback option I'd rather get to. Phil Maffa at 6'5". That does seem like an enticing price tag. Rocket Sanders, that price tag at 6'2" does sound sort of interesting, but I'm not buying the Ponzi scheme of Rocket Sanders this year. I've done it enough. You're not catching me this time, Rocket. So I'm not excited about that. The receivers are kind of intriguing at their prices, right? Because, again, I don't think we completely ignore the game because of the pricing they have on these receivers. Antonio Williams is pricey at 6'1", but has a pretty healthy projection. He actually makes sense. He's the wide receiver 1. He could have a very big game. Wesco Jr. at 3'5". That's a really nice price tag. We also have a couple questionable guys, like Brengan Stool's questionable. I assume he'll suit up. You got Simon is questionable. That could open up some more value for the South Carolina receivers. Although South Carolina receivers aren't really guys that have been on the winners as of late, especially with Sellers throwing the football. So we'll see what that news kind of does. But I think some of the receivers are in play. I think Maffa's probably the top play of the game if you had to pick one when it comes from like a floor ceiling perspective of the chances of being optimal. What about you, Bruce?
Yeah, kind of like South Carolina to win this one straight up. I think they've been playing really well, and they just look better. I know it's tough to go into Clemson and get a win, but I think Sellers has kind of turned that corner just a little bit, and he's looked really good running the football, making good decisions. And I think Rocket Sanders is a solid play. We saw Isaac Brown go into Clemson and put up a big score, and I think Rocket Sanders is a little bit better back. I think he's a good tournament play. I think Maffa is going to have a tough time. I think he's cheap. He's cheap, but this is a good defensive line. Maybe the best he's faced in a little while. So. The team total's low. I think Clemson's going to have to throw it a little bit more than usual. TJ Morris, 3,100. That's a great value. All these guys are still cheap. Antonio Williams at 6,100 is probably still too cheap. All the South Carolina receivers are cheap. They don't, the way that they get there is if they fall behind. Nick Harbor, 3,200, big play guy. Campbell is flat 3K. He's solid. Wesco at 3,500 for Clemson is cheap too. But yeah, I think mainly I'm going to limit it to one-offs with like Sellers, the Rocket Sanders. I think those two guys are really solid plays in tournaments, but mostly staying away from this other than those two guys.
Yeah, I hear you. It's like if you told me, hey, pick between Clemson, South Carolina, and Louisville, Kentucky, like which game would you stack? Like we're picking 249 totals. Like, I would probably pick the Louisville and Kentucky one over this one. Like I just don't love this game. You can grab pieces here and there, but I want to be a little careful because there's other games I want to get to, like specifically the next game up. And I mean, this is definitely a really, really solid game. Very good team total, 61.5, Baylor and Kansas. And listen, Kansas has been playing some good football lately. Like, say what you want about their record, I don't think they're a 5-6 team right now. Like, I think they're playing like, I don't know, a 7-5 team or an 8-4 team. Like, they're playing very good football if you've been watching them week to week. Not saying I think they're going to for sure upset Baylor, because I think Baylor is a really solid team here. I wouldn't mind Kansas, I guess, money line, right? They're probably the dogs in this game. Yeah, oh no, Baylor's actually the dogs, which they're road dogs, by the way. So that's what I'm saying. This Kansas team's playing good football. I think people haven't recognized that enough. Jalen Daniels, 7-1. I'll like him. Sawyer Robertson, 7-7. I think he's a good play. Both those guys in the conversation. Devin Neal, 8-7. What he did last week, you can't ignore it. Bryson Washington, I'm not ignoring what he did at 7-6. He definitely is upside. Now, the receivers, we got to talk about that and how Kansas is broken down, because Arnold's the key one. Is he going to play? How will he be? Skinner and Grimm seem like good plays. Grimm feels like the top play in the game, but he is the most expensive option. He's probably my top Kansas option. And there's enough value in this game with the Baylor receivers where I probably just want to, if I do stacks, I want to have Grimm kind of jammed in there with my quarterback. So, listen, there's so many routes you can go. Obviously, Baylor's a little bit of receiver roulette. It seems like Hawkins has really kind of emerged as the guy. And then it's like maybe Cameron and a little bit of Presley. Trigg, he can pop off, but the point being is it's roulette with these guys. Hawkins kind of seems like the number one at this point. curious to get your take on how you're handling this Baylor receivers and the Kansas ones.
Yeah, I think this game could end up being very, very good. I put it slightly behind West Virginia and Texas Tech, but I still love it. There's two offensive lines that are great at blocking. There could be some big plays mixed in there as well. I think the two running backs, Neal and Washington, are great plays. Just because, man, Kansas's offensive line might be the best run blocking offensive line in the country. It's pretty close, and sometimes they say that the run games travel. So I like Neal here. I know he had a big week against Colorado last week, but with his Shaw possibly out again, that's it's just more snaps for him. And Bryson Washington, and since Washington and Robertson have started, Baylor just looks like a totally different team. I like Hawkins a lot here, 3,600, 21% target share last 4 weeks, and he's just looked the part out in the slot there. Just feed him a ton. Josh Cameron as well, just so much touchdown upside there, and then Michael Trigg as well at 3,100. It's just too cheap. Kansas receivers are always tough, but I always rank them Grimm and then Skinner there, and then Arnold's slightly behind. But I think this game could go nuts if some of these guys make big plays, and they're definitely possible. It's definitely possible for them to do so.
Yeah, Bruce, here's another question for you, because I think this will help give some good slate context to people. I give you $20 to enter the main, but you got to stack either Baylor or Kansas, or you have to stack Texas Tech and West Virginia. And I mean, I'm not saying like you have to put like 8 guys on each team, but you know what I'm saying. You got to do like a 4-man, like a full-on 4 players from each game, 5, one of the two. Which game is the better game for you? For me, it's Baylor and Kansas. I think that's the better game on the slate, despite the lower team total. What about you?
Man, that's close. I'd probably say West Virginia, Texas Tech, just because I like the way this Texas Tech pass game stacks up against West Virginia's pass defense. I just think it's a great spot for them. West Virginia gives up tons of explosive plays, so I'd lean there slightly, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, I think the fair point to bring up there is I think the Texas Tech pass game is more predictable. Mm-hmm. I do think there's a little more like price-friendly plays in the Baylor and Kansas game, which could allow you to get some really good plays onto your lineup. So, but they're obviously both great games. I'm just trying to give some context to like try to think through the slate of how to handle, because I think the Baylor just has so many cheap receivers. The one nice part about Texas Tech, like I said, is they have a cheap quarterback and they have some easy receiver pairings. So that kind of makes it pretty simplistic there. But overall, it's a great spot to go to. All right, let's get to the next game, USC and Notre Dame. USC has kind of turned into a disaster, it feels like, this year. Yes, they still have Woody Marks there lead in the backfield, and he's not a bad option, but I don't know, man. I think it's just like Notre Dame kind of rolls a bit here. It's a 52.5 total. Riley Leonard is 8.7. If you want to spend on him, sure, you could certainly do that. Jeremiah Love, I know he's shown some ceiling performances at 7K. Don't X him out of your pool. He is not a bad option. But I think it's mainly just focus on the Notre Dame run game, Bruce. What are you doing here?
Yeah, I agree. Even though this USC pass defense is terrible, I just don't know how they're going to take advantage of it. Notre Dame. I mean, they could, with their mini receivers here, but it's always hard to get that nailed down. But I love Riley Leonard. I think he makes plays on the ground. 10 rushes per game. Dude has 13 rush touchdowns and 14 passing. So just a big dual threat guy. I love playing those guys. USC is terrible on defense, so he can have a huge game. Jeremiah Love, like you mentioned, I probably have one of those guys in most of my lineups. It's a good spot for him. It's USC. Their defense has been horrible last few weeks, and I think they score well. Receiver wise, it's hard to play any of these guys. USC rotates so much. I think Hudson is probably my favorite USC wide receiver, but man, just drawing from a hat as well. Jacoby Lane's been banged up, only played 20% of snaps, and I think most of them were near the goal line last week against UCLA. But yeah, Bo Collins at 3,200 is good value. I'll probably have him on the playbook, but yeah, it's mainly Riley Leonard or Love for me.
All right. Yeah, Riley Leonard makes sense. I get it. If I have the salary, sure, I'll spend on it, but not a priority at all. He's just expensive, right? And I don't know. There's guys I'm going to want to sure get to. Let's get to Arkansas and Missouri. Man, we haven't. I'll say this first. Have we really had that much Missouri on the slates this year? Not really. We haven't seen them a ton. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it for sure. And when we have, they've been hurt, and we haven't even looked their way. So, yeah. Yep.
It's definitely been because I loved Missouri last year. It's been a little bit frustrating with them. Mm-hmm. Arkansas hasn't been the greatest spot for them all year. Sure, Andrew Armstrong 6'3" is fine. Talon Green at 7'8", he's been a frustrating roster for me at times. You got Noel, Brady Cook, Burden, all interesting plays. But when I look at all these plays, Bruce, I'm just I don't know. I think I can find better plays in their range that I just don't see myself really getting there. Maybe if I did, maybe it's a weird game stack where I just hope the game absolutely just goes nuclear, right? But I don't want to let's say you play 20 teams. I don't want to have exposure to all these plays in this game, and I feel I got a piece here, a piece there, and then my teams are just dead. You know what I mean? I truly do not think this is that great of a DFS game based on their prices, Bruce. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, I agree. I think Brady Cook is probably mispriced if you want one, but even he hasn't been running that much just because he's been just not healthy. So I think he's okay. Nate Noel at 5,100 is a decent play, good value play, and I think he's all right. Carroll has been scoring touchdowns though. Dude has 10 touchdowns on limited snaps, so he may come in at the goal line and kill Noel for you there. But he is 4,200, so I don't mind that. It's tough Arkansas running backfield with Quentin Jackson healthy. DeBinion started last week and played 45% of the snaps. Looked really good. So I think he's okay for 3,400. A starter is not horrible for that price. And then Armstrong, like you mentioned, 6,300. Burden's been banged up, but he's still playing well. He scored a touchdown last week, but he is 7,100. He'll be low owned for sure. He just has tons of upside in this game always. I mean, he's going to be first round pick guy, so I don't think he's horrible in tournaments. But yeah, mostly staying away. Other than those I gave you, I don't mind Talon Green in tournaments, just because he runs. But Brady Cook is okay. I might fade him tomorrow because he's going to have some ownership at that price. I think there's some good plays. I mean, even the Kentucky quarterback might even outscore him. I don't know. We'll see. Haven't totally made up my mind on that, but he's going to be 30% owned, and without rushing upside, I might go a different direction.
Yeah, who did you say is going to be 30% owned?
Brady Cook.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my monitor kept going in and out, but I kind of fixed it a little bit there. So, all right. Let's get to Cal and SMU. SMU they're clearly going to be in the playoff, right? They're going to get to that playoff. They'll be in the ACC championship game. It looks like. I'm assuming they want to keep making statements, right? They don't want to, and even if they do lose the ACC championship game, they still want to try to find a way to get in. So Kevin Jennings, I'm sure Steve is somewhere. If he's not watching, he's pounding the ladders of Kevin Jennings somewhere. Fernando Mendoza, 6.8K. I played him a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I should consider it. We'll have to see. He's not cheap anymore, but he's still cheap enough where I think he's in play. Jaden Knott is 6K. How the mighty have fallen from being 9K to start the year. Rashad Smith, 8.1K. Definitely someone you look at. Roderick Daniels, he'll be a cheap option. Hudson. These are guys that can win tournaments and have the ability to do against this Cal defense that I'm not scared of. Bruce, what are you doing with the SMU side of the ball?
Yeah, I think SMU just totally blow Cal's doors off here. I think Brashard Smith is he's expensive, but I think he's a good play here. Cal's rush defense has been pretty terrible, and it is a home game for SMU, and they want to run the football. So I think Brashard Smith is solid. If you want to value, I think LJ Johnson has looked good in recent weeks. He missed a game and a half with injury, but his snaps are trending up, and he looked really solid last week. If SMU get out to a lead and may get more carries for 3,500, that's a hell of a price. So I think he's solid. Roderick Daniels is still 3,900. Didn't have the best game last week, but I think it was all there for him. They just didn't put it all together. I think he's a good play. Keyshawn Smith, 4,300 is solid too, and Moochie Dixon at 3,300 to pair with a guy like Kevin Jennings, who's still too cheap. He's running just a little bit. I think ever since he got injured, he's not running as much. So I think he's a good play if you're going to pair him with a receiver too, probably. It's a lot more concentrated than it was earlier in the year. Moochie Dixon got 80% of snaps last week. Daniels 80%. I know Hudson's out with a concussion, so just kind of it's really narrow. Keyshawn Smith got 80%, so it's pretty easy to identify where the ball's going to go to, and Kevin Jennings is going to throw. So it makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, SMU definitely seems like a team that's tournament winning upside on this. Like they also, yes, Kevin Jennings is, he costs some money at 7K. Actually, I thought it was going to be 8K, but it's 7K now, right? It's not that expensive. The key is the receivers help make it work fairly easy for their price tag. So, I think SMU is, wheels up. Let's play it. Let's get exposure to them. Let's get to another really strong game on this slate. Syracuse and Miami. And Miami, they only have the one loss, right? They're going to probably play in the ACC championship. This is 67.5 total. This game is a very strong game. One, because, hey, Cam Ward is running an electric offense, right? The offense just absolutely hums. He's been phenomenal all season long. He's not in the he's been in the Heisman conversation, but it's like Hunter and JT have kind of pulled out in front of him. Syracuse, the reason why they're going to be really good plays here is not only do they have really strong receivers, right? You look up and down. Gadsden, 5.2K. Meeks, he's another good option at 5.7. Pena, 5.6, who's questionable. And if he misses, he clearly would open up and make those other two plays even stronger. LaQuint Allen, 8.4. I know it's expensive, but he can definitely get the job done. And Kyle McCord has been slinging the ball, pretty decent this year. This Canes defense sucks, right? This is not a good defense. This is not a defense that I don't think can win the college football playoff, right? It's just that bad. Another thing they call out is if this team, they will make the college football playoff. Whatever game they're in is probably just going to be the highest total on the slate because of how bad this defense is. So I will not be ignoring Syracuse. I think they're a really, really strong play on this slate. And of course, you're going to want Miami options as well. So I expect this game to go off a bit. What's your thoughts here, Bruce?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's there's some guys in the game that are priced too low as well. We saw last week Miami had issues with Wake Forest and their offense, which hasn't been great this year. So it's probably one of my favorite games of the week for sure. You have Cam Ward and Kyle McCord, like you said. Both are great plays. They're priced up here, but I think if the game goes off, they could easily 4x their salary. LaQuint Allen, it's a tough matchup on the ground, I think, but the guy has a 13% target share as well in the last 4 weeks in a passing offense. So, and the main thing about Miami's rush defense is they give up a ton of explosives. So if you can break one, it even adds to it. Guys playing 90% of the snaps too. So the upside is there. I think Damian Martinez also is one of the better plays. 5,500, got near 70% of snaps last week, and Syracuse rush defense just got torched a few games. If you remember, game 1, Ohio ran all over them with Tyus, and then later on in the year, Stanford also ran all over them. So, yeah, there's definitely going to be some yards on the ground here. Martinez, Fletcher, and Lyle are going to get the carries there. So they have a ton of upside, in my opinion. Receivers, you have Darryl Gill for $3K for Syracuse. He started last week, so I think he's going to continue to start. And he's $3K, got 10 targets last week. They just didn't price him up for whatever reason. So I think he's going to have some ownership, but I think he's a really good play at over 100 yards as well. Gadsden is still getting a lot of looks, 13 targets last week. Jacoby George scored a couple touchdowns last week for Miami. He's still cheap. If Pena misses, it's just gonna boost those guys like Meeks, all the rest of the Syracuse side. So I think I didn't even mention Restrepo. He had an off week last week, but the guy just crushes most weeks. So it's a solid game, and I think Miami wins it, but I think Syracuse puts up some points.
Yeah, Syracuse will put up points. It's a good spot. This is definitely a really good game. When I run all my stuff tomorrow morning, right, and I'm looking at it, you might see this team's in my core. You might see me just be very overweight on this game. Would you rank this game over the Texas Tech game? I know that was your favorite. Mine was the Baylor one. Would you rank this one above it for sure, or do you disagree?
I think it's pretty close. I think I like this better than the Kansas Baylor game for sure. Just because there's going to be a lot of passing on the Syracuse side, at least. I know when they get down, they're still going to pass the football. They're not going to give up like Indiana did against Ohio State. They're still going to sling the ball. So the pace isn't the greatest from the Syracuse side. So if they do get up, they could slow things down. But it's those three games for sure. I think it's probably Texas Tech, West Virginia, and then Miami, Syracuse for me.
All right, and that's the order of those games. Let's get to the last two games of the slate. Arizona State, Arizona up next. Man, don't look now. Arizona State is projected to make the playoff, which I don't think anyone had on their bingo card to start the year. They've been playing really good football. Cam Skatebo has been amazing. He's 10.1K, and I assume he won't really pop. But I'm just curious, kind of your thoughts on the Cam Skatebo at that price, because he is someone that, I could see him just being unowned, and he could easily nuke for a massive game against Arizona. A little, rivalry game. This is definitely a big game that over there in Arizona. They're the two big teams in town. McMillan, 8.6, definitely a spend you can get to. Tyson's been great at 6.7K. Noah Fafita, I'm not buying that Ponzi scheme anymore. I'm out on that. Sam Levitt, he's been solid. Don't mind him. Conley at 6.8, that's fine. But I feel like Arizona feels overpriced. Arizona State still feels a bit, maybe priced okay, but underpriced, specifically Tyson. What do you think with this game, Bruce?
Yeah, I think you're dead on with Skatebo here. He's not going to hit a ton of your lineups if you're running the running Saber, but it's a smash spot for him for sure. Arizona's rush defense has been terrible this year, almost near last with their defensive line yards. Their defensive line is just getting pushed back, and Arizona State's offensive line has been one of the top in the Big 12. So I think Skatebo is able to run the football and score some touchdowns. Played 84% of the snaps last week against BYU and played really well. So and he can catch the football. Guy has 11% target share last 4 weeks, and he's been out like one of those weeks too. So I think he's a solid play. Tyson just keeps crushing. 50% target share last 4 weeks. 12 last week. 9 touchdowns this year. Just a great spot for him as well. I think he just continues to crush. He's going to be owned for sure. The two Arizona receivers I look at are McMillan, of course, and then Chris Hunter, who finally got priced up. He has a 26% target share last 4 weeks, and 12 last week. So I think he's a good play. I don't see this game going off, but I do like these individual pieces like Skataboo and maybe even McMillan in tournaments is going to be unowned at 8,600 because it's so hard to play those two guys together. So much salary, but they have tons of upside.
Oh yeah, they have tons of upside to the point where it's like, if you're a big MME guy, like you're playing more than just 20 teams, like I don't know, you need to leave Skataboo in the pool. Like I'm not saying force him in there, but it's like if the dude's going to be like 2%, which I just don't think anyone's going to pay on for him, like you just can't ignore it, right? It's like the Iowa running back Caleb Johnson or whatever. Like people wouldn't play him, and he was expensive, and he's a stud like that like basically is the offense, and everything moves through him. So just important to note. Let's get to Auburn and Bama. Little rivalry game here. Auburn, they helped me win some money last week. Soft spot in my heart for Auburn and Peyton Thorne to close the season out. I don't know. Can they run it back? Probably not against Bama. Like this is not the spot where I'm looking to run back Auburn. They have some decent receivers you can make some arguments for. Lambert Smith, Cam Coleman, who just feels too cheap, who was amazing last week, did everything in the first half. Ryan Williams, 6'7", he's kind of died throughout the season. The running game, not super excited about it. Jalen Milroe is 9.9, and I don't know if I want to pay 9.9 for Jalen Milroe. If I have the salary, sure, but there might be better ways to use my salary on this slate, Bruce. But talk about Auburn and Bama. I doubt you're playing too much on it.
Yeah, exactly right. I think it's pretty defensive. It was last year. I know Milroe played really well in the game. He had over 100 yards rushing and a couple touchdown passes. But it's hard for me to see Auburn really competing here. I think Bama wins. They should be really pissed off after getting destroyed by Oklahoma last week as well. So I do think Auburn pieces are cheap. Like you mentioned, Cam Coleman, 3,900. Dude has 7 touchdowns this year. 8 targets last week. Smash for us last week as well. So I think he's a great play. Lambert Smith has also been playing really well. Just a really tough matchup though for Auburn. Probably limit myself to one person from this game, maybe a one-off. I don't mind Milroe in tournaments. And I think he's going to be really low owned. Jam Miller is a good play, especially if Justice Haynes misses. Miller got near 80% of the snaps last week against Oklahoma because Haynes got banged up. And so if for some reason Haynes sits, I think 4K Jam Miller is going to be a great play at home. So I think that's something to monitor, and I'll put that in the playbook, highlight it just a little bit. But yeah, Ryan Williams, good tournament play. Jeremy Bernard as well, but mostly staying away. Other than a couple value pieces here.
Yeah, I mean, if that value opens up, obviously a running back that's going to have the whole backfield in Bama, it's definitely intriguing for sure. So do not completely ignore that one there. All right. I don't think we got too much else to say, Bruce. That's the slate, right? We had a lot of games, obviously missing Bryce, so ran a little bit quicker, but that's okay. Bruce, I guess any final thoughts here on tomorrow's slate?
No, everything looks like it's going to be a pretty straightforward. Not a ton of injury news, to be honest here. The late slate. We do have a good solid late slate too. I'm pulling that up here, but I know Texas is on it, playing A&M, which that should be a good game. Finally renewing that rivalry after last game was when Justin Tucker was in college. He kicked the game-winning field goal, so that was one to remember. But yeah, Oklahoma LSU to kick it off is pretty terrible because Oklahoma's defense is solid. I think, the late slate's looking kind of rough. Purdue and Indiana. I think Indiana is going to destroy Purdue after losing to Ohio State. Wake East Florida State playing Florida, which that should be pretty one-sided, I think. But it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. Nevada and UNLV could be high-scoring. UNLV should roll. And then the last game of the night is JMU and Marshall, which Kurtz Marshall been playing pretty well this year too. So yeah, it's a solid week of football. Lots of playoff implications, and just looking forward to chatting it up with the boys in the Discord, and it's the last week of the regular season pretty much. So as we head into the playoff, a few more weeks that actually matter, which we love to see.
Yep, you definitely love to see it. Let's get the plays of the day too. We should do that. So, who will be the play of the day for me? Bruce, you got yours handy. A lot of good games to pick from, obviously. But who was your play of the day?
Yeah, let me pull this up here. Sorry, I closed down on my tab. Man,
It's a tough. I mean, there's a lot of good plays this week for sure.
Yeah, I would. I'm gonna go with Taj Brooks. Let's go with Taj Brooks.
Okay. Taj Brooks is. I'm going with. We're going to Syracuse. We're going to the Orange one. We're going to Gadsden at 5-2. That's just too cheap. He's going to be a really good play. Might have some ownership, but that's okay. You can eat that ownership. He's a really good play, and hopefully he doesn't get ownership. Hopefully I can have him all to myself. If I can get him at 1%, I'll play every single contest if I could. He's that good of a play. So I'm in on Gadsden. That is going to wrap it up for us, though. Thanks a lot for joining us here on the College Football Show. For me, Mango, and Bruce, we'll see you guys later.